Checkity check check. Sound check. Welcome back to the Undeserved Flavor, where we taste and see that the Lord is good. If you haven't caught the video that I put out prior to this one, catch that one first. This is number 2 in the series. The jail series. The Great Reset is what I decided to, what I landed on for a title for this series. Episode 1 was, So I'm out of jail. Wait, what? What do you mean, wait, what? So I went back and watched a little bit of that video. I ended up getting to be 2 hours long. Okay, before we get into this, I gotta slow down. It's kind of funny. Last night I started the video. It was 12:04 a.m. Today, starting the recording at 11:59. So technically, both of these videos, episode 1 and episode 2, were started on the same day. Yeah, so I went back and listened to just the first little bit of that because I mean, with everything I got going on today, there's no way I could go back and re-listen to 2 hours of my own self talking, and I don't need to because I'm the one that said it all. But sometimes it helps because then I know where I left off and I know what I didn't fully expound on that I could explain anyway. But yeah, I got to keep them shorter. I got to cut it off at an hour, even if I'm not where I want to be in the conversation. I mean, I could do 2 back-to-back videos in one sitting, no problem. But my gosh, it took over 24 hours for this video to publish. It took in the ballpark of, let's see, 10, 12 hours for the video to just upload. And I got gig speed internet. Granted, it's going through Wi-Fi. But, you know, my upload speed is 40 meg. So that's where it caps off at, which is pretty fast. But all that said, it's kind of irrelevant. Hopefully you don't see the flickering lights. Yeah, you see it. Dang it. I got a LED that's going out. It's flipping strobing on me. Whatever. Hope it doesn't bother you. I'm not going to do anything about it right now. Anyway, so last night's video, before I just ramble off into oblivion and put you to sleep, and I'll get into it. Like I said yesterday, this channel is going to change a little bit. I think I'm going to go in more of a vlog direction. If it wasn't already kind of like that. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a scholar. I'm not an academic. I do not specialize in anything that I am doing on this channel, you know, from a worldly perspective or worldly standard, societal standard. I'm just a regular old guy blowing hot air in front of a phone camera with a decent microphone because I'm a sound snob and it just bothers me when I'm listening to something and the sound is crap. And I don't edit my sound. Otherwise, I could use a cheaper mic and then do all the fancy stuff on the computer. Ain't nobody got time for that. I don't anyway. But if I don't start this video before I'm 5 minutes into it, I'm going to restart this video. I'm already 5 minutes into it. Let's just freaking... You know what? In the nature and spirit of doing things organically going forward, those of you who are going to hang out with me because of my authenticity and genuineness, that's the crowd I want around. So I'm really sorry if I bore you with my rambling intros. But hey, man, that's life. You know, listen to me at a time when there's nothing else to do, or skip ahead. Sometimes maybe I'll be nice enough to drop a pinned comment like, "Hey, get past my rambling, skip ahead to 10 minutes in," or whatever, and whatever. Maybe if I think about it. But so what I want to do in this series is kind of, the last video was kind of a macro perspective, a 2-hour long nutshell, which really, I mean, I'd need 10 hours to just nutshell my last 50 days. And even just talking about the last 50 days, I wouldn't even be scratching the surface, because this goes farther back than that. I mean, why did I end up in jail? I think I covered that just for a second. I wasn't running around doing anything illegal, but just due to the nature of how my business ended up failing. I think I mentioned it in the previous video. I had a customer that, instead of trying to sue me in a civil court, they went to the county and blamed me or accused me of stealing her money, and somehow got a warrant. I mean, there really wasn't a lot of evidence, but she just said it. I mean, she had the evidence that she paid money and the project hadn't been started, and she was a month behind schedule. So there's that. And that set off a chain reaction. I'm not going to rationalize or justify anything, my role in this, because obviously, number one, you're only going to hear my side of the story, so there's no point in me trying to advocate for myself, because my character is irrelevant. I guess excuse me, it's not really irrelevant. If you guys found out that I was a scumbag, you wouldn't want to watch me, or you wouldn't take seriously what I have to say. But, well, I'm not a scumbag, and I didn't do anything intentionally to land myself in that position. But the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not going to sit here and apologize and explain away and rationalize why I shouldn't have been there. That's irrelevant. Maybe I'll talk about it more at a later date. The case is still ongoing. I haven't even begun negotiations yet, or plea bargaining, or whatever the next step is. I just happened to get the miracle I was praying for and get bonded out against a lot of odds, bad odds. So God has been quite real. So what I want to try to focus on in the series, that is the Great Reset here, I don't want to focus on the fact that I don't want to focus on the court case and the jail, the fact that I was what I want to focus on is what God was doing through this process, what God was doing in my life. I don't want to focus on a lot, the personal details of it all. You get where I'm going? Like, there's the worldly issues side, and then there's what God was doing in my life in the process. I'm obviously going to have to touch on some of the details to fully expound on the process of what God was doing. So you'll kind of be able to put the picture together over the course of these episodes. And honestly, if this is your form of entertainment, great. I appreciate your hanging out with me. But ultimately, my goal here is to offer freely. I have been given, so freely I'm going to give. If you don't feel like there's any value in what I'm offering, I don't know why you're here. I would actually ask you to not be here, because you're more valuable than that. Do something valuable, more important with your time. If you're not receiving anything valuable from what I have to say, why are you here? And I say that with respect, obviously. I mean, obviously, I'm telling you, you're more valuable than, so unless you're waiting around hoping that I'll get to something that adds value to your life, well, in that case, you're not who I'm talking about. You're getting value from what I'm saying. So, 10 minutes in, I'm going to do what I can to stop the ramble. You kind of know where I'm at. You have a nutshell idea of a foundation of what's transpired over the last 2-3 months. Where I want to go with tonight's video, and I'm going to keep it to an hour, so I got 50 minutes left. I don't want to, I mean, I could end it at any time, but I just want to keep it under an hour so I can upload it and it doesn't take 30 hours to actually publish. So I want to talk about my emotional journey. If you've had an experience in life where you were imprisoned in some fashion, whether you were violated, kidnapped, whatever you named the experience, or if you were actually in jail, you're going to be able to relate to a lot of the roller coaster of emotions that I experienced. You may actually be bored by what I have to say because you're like, been there, done that. You know, you may even be critical of my experience because you handled it or processed it a different way. We're not here to talk about you. I got the microphone, so I can hear your thoughts. I'm just kidding. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me okay, if I'm too quiet. I need some feedback to know everything's working out. Any feedback regarding the video quality or whatever, or, you know, some things I'm just going to be like, live with it. You know, like the studio here. It's not a studio. It's my office / junk drawer of my house. And maybe one day I'll be in a position to fix the place up or end up living somewhere else. And have a place where I can actually film something with a little bit more of an excellence in video quality. But honestly, at the end of the day, like I said, you know, those who I want around are people I can vibe with, and those are the people that are you're here for the authenticity and the genuineness of what I have to bring to the table, and not for just a performance. I'm not doing this to put on a performance, because that'd be a waste of time unless I was in it for the money, and there ain't no money in this. So I have a heart for sharing what I have been blessed with, and that's where I'm at. So that's why I'm doing this. And it blesses me too, because when I have, you know I'm helping some people out that are in the dumps, because I've had people in my situation, you know what I mean? Like the tables basically have turned. We need each other, and God sends people to us and sends us to people at the right time for the whatever it is we're going through. I'm gonna get off me now. So anyway, I'm sorry. We're 13 minutes in. I want to talk. So my head is in so many different places right now that I'm practically numb. I actually, I don't know if I mentioned this in the video last night. I actually have hearing loss from my experience in there. I just realized that my hearing seemed a little different. Like toward the end of my stay. And it never dawned on me until I heard some guy in the distance. I just overheard the guy, just BSing with another guy talking about how he has tinnitus. And I'm like, oh. Then I'm thinking, is that what I have? Because I know what it is. It's ringing in the ears. I'm like, my ears are ringing. Like a lot of military, people that work in loud occupations, you can get tinnitus. You get loud ear ringing, coupled with, just normal hearing loss. Well, it wasn't loud in there as much. It was loud. You got concrete floor, ceiling, and walls. It's an echo chamber, and you got 80 guys that are all trying to talk over each other for 21 to 22 hours a day, 4:30 in the morning till about 2 in the morning, give or take an hour. so you don't get a break from the noise. But I mean, it's just a constant drone of a lot of decibels of talking and all being inside of a concrete box. That's a form of torture in and of itself. But if you're, certain people can, I don't want to say tune it out because you can't tune that out, but mentally you can learn to tune that out. But I think what happens when you're learning to tune that out, the physical nature actually reacts in such a way where it realizes I don't need that much hearing in this environment, so it starts intentionally self-destructing. Does that make sense? You're evolving, you're adapting to your environment. You don't need that much hearing. It's not that you're losing your hearing because it's being damaged. I think your body is trying to adapt to your environment because it's not necessary to be able to be so sensitive in an environment that everything is so loud. You get what I'm saying? But beyond that, I don't think that's really where I lost my, because that's the scientific side of, or should I say the biological side of my theory. And when I realized I was losing some hearing and getting tinnitus, then there's the psychological side, which I want to talk about some of the experiences that happened in there, things that I've never expected. I mean, it's 2024. The way human beings were treated in there. I mean, I know there's places in the world where, it's uncivilized. Not a lot of things happen that are not like nowhere near acceptable by modern society as okay, but it's jail, and we in the South, they want to treat this jail like a maximum security prison, and they even say it. And beyond that, if there's a psychological, like, I'm not in the LEO community, law enforcement community. I'm not familiar with it other than like any old regular Joe. But I know their game. I don't blame them. It's all they got. And it's smart, obviously, unless they can find a better way. I'm not criticizing it. Unless someone else can come up with a better way, I'm not picking on it. And that is, they have to maintain psychological dominance over the scumbags of the planet, and if they can maintain a psychological dominance, they're going to have less physical altercations. Get what I'm saying? You think I just think I'm wrong in my perceptions? I mean, that's a theory. It's a speculation. It's an observation. It's a guess. But I could tell from the time I got arrested initially and the way they treated me to the way I saw everybody treated in jail. Anyway, not really something I wanted to talk about in this particular video, but I'm, in every video I'm going to share a little bit of the actual experience, but I want to talk about what got me through. So where I was going with that was talking about my hearing. A lot of most guys are not I'm not going to analyze everything. Just everybody's different, and it's not I'm not saying I'm not saying this from a high horse or place of condescension. I just observe things. And I analyze the psychology and whatever of people. I'm a people watcher, I guess. Well, a lot of guys probably just, I don't know. I'm not going to differentiate myself from other people, but what I'm getting to here is I'm really slow to call something a trauma or something with enough shock factor that you will have clinical PTSD. I'm really slow because in today's culture, it's overused. I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. The pendulum is way over here. Like everything's a trauma in society today. Everything's a trauma. My coffee was cold when I got it from the barista. It's a freaking trauma. The rest of your week is ruined. To over here, almost nothing is a trauma unless it's blatantly evident that you were affected in so many ways and your life has been transformed somehow or another because of the whatever took place, whether it was prolonged or an event, whatever it was. You get what I'm saying? Well, anyway, it took me a while to even admit to myself that what I and a lot of other guys are experiencing in here was legit trauma. And my wife is pursuing further education for clinical counseling, and she's in grad school, if that's, I guess, what you call it. Yeah, she's postgraduate. I don't know. I'm tired. Anyway, she's she's going to for counseling. But I learned something. I'm like, you know what? I've talked to psychologists and psychiatrists, due to the fact that my marriage has been kind of up and down. I've humored my wife and I went and talked to a shrink. You don't call them shrinks anymore. You know what I mean? But I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'm not against that. I'm not like prideful enough to be like, I don't need that. But I'm like, it did nothing for me. And the person I'm talking to, I think they're looking at me like, why are you here? And I'm being open, honest, minus like the very, very, very personal stuff. I mean, nobody's fully honest with somebody you don't know. I guess some people might just spill the beans completely, but like I was honest enough. Or should I say now? I mean, I wasn't dishonest, but I was transparent enough with my emotions and my thoughts and things I wouldn't tell anybody else. I was. It was these were honest interviews, so I could accurately receive the service that they were trying to offer me. I don't believe that counseling is the right answer for a lot of PTSD. Kind of like you go to the doctor for a disease, they don't give you the same pill for every disease or the same treatment. I don't think every PTSD is gonna benefit or even receive better. Well, I don't want to get into it too far off. I'm rabbit trailing here. I realized while I was in there and what I was experiencing, I'm like, I'm not going back to a psychiatrist or psychologist. It's just not for me. It was a complete waste of time, frankly. I receive therapy by talking to normal people that I vibe with, people that are on my level, or on my wavelength, not level, but wavelength spiritually. Even if we don't agree on like where we're at, whether it's a Baptist Christian or a New Age spiritualist that believes that all things are the universe, there's a wavelength you can vibe with people, and you can what I'm talking about. Like you can confide in some people, and some people you're not gonna open up to. Well, that's my therapy. Like I got a buddy who I can really vibe with, and we can just sit in a truck in a parking lot for hours and just unload on each other about where we're at in life and this and that, what we're going through, and admit, the fact that we broke down and ugly cried in private for 3 hours and processed everything you know what I mean? Like that's therapy. I think that's for me, I'm not going to get that from a psychologist, and the stuff that I experienced in this last 50 days, there's no psychologist that can touch that. That I've experienced. I may be wrong, and I haven't been around the block too far. I've met with a few different psychologists, psychiatrists, and like I said, it's because I was advised to by my wife and so I went for, good PR basically to humor her. And also, I wasn't going to patronize her. I was going to, honestly, like, well, hey, you're in this field. Maybe legitimately there's something to be gained here. And after experiencing a variety of flavors of it, by that I mean multiple different people, it's completely useless to me. And frustratingly so, because it was a waste of time, and I don't have time to waste, especially in this season of life. So I have no interest in going back. I have nothing bad to say about the people that I interacted with. But that said, the shock of going from normal civilian life in my particular type of civilian life to, and we all have a different walk, whether you're, I'm not going to rabbit trail. You know what I mean? It does not take a rocket scientist to know that we have different life experiences. But in my middle class suburban experience, being ripped out of that, ripped away from my family, and thrown into a box with 80 other guys, the majority of which are who we normally would deem the scumbag, the dregs of society, scumbags, thugs, whatever, guys that are in there because they're robbing people or, trafficking drugs or murdering people or for whatever. I mean, some of the guys I met in there, geez, man, there was a handful of child predators. And when it comes out that, let me just get to a couple stories here because we're a half an hour in. When I first got in, there was this guy who was he was in there for soliciting children. Not going to get into the details, obviously, for everybody's honor's sake. And legal, I don't know I could say everything I want and it'd be 100% legal. I don't know the guy's name, so it doesn't matter. But he was in there for soliciting children, and, it's just stereotypical. So, that those kind of guys don't fare well in prison or jail. Well, he didn't. One of the guys got a local newspaper, and he was always reading, in jail, you don't have nothing to do. So he'd read the whole entire newspaper, and a section of this paper would have, last week's arrests. In some cases, they'd have mugshots. They would talk about the name of the person, what they're arrested for. Anyway, there was this one article or post or whatever. I don't know what, this guy's name, what he did, soliciting children. It was a little bit more detailed than that, but, or solicitation of minors, electronic devices. He was on his computer trying to meet with kids. This dude's probably 40 years old, and he was trying to hook up with underage kids. One of those guys, child predator. And the dude was a weirdo. I didn't meet him, but you can tell by the way he carried himself, and just, you can tell he was off. I'm not judging him. I'm just, he's probably autistic in some way or, whatever. We're not going there. What I'm saying is, when this guy read this, and then he shows it to his bunkmate, and then you get 6 guys. I think it's that guy over there. Let's go over there. So they walk up to this guy, and they're like, "What's your last name?" And one guy walks up to the guy and just grabs his wrist and looks at his, name tag, and he's like, "I knew it," and he sees his last name. He's like, you son of a, you're in here for, you're a child predator or whatever, and the guy, his eyes go wide and he knows he's been found out. And he gets up and immediately like walks around down the stairs and over to the little doorbell thing at the entry, like if you need something or whatever. And he obviously said, I need to get out of here. These guys are going to kill me. And in the process, all these other guys are like grabbing what little he has for belongings, like his mat that we like, everybody gets issued like a mat, a couple jumpsuits, a couple utensils for eating, and then you got your rolled toilet paper and your toothpaste and whatever, your little stuff, Well, being that we're up on the second level and he was on the second level, they grab all the stuff and they just friggin' throw it down into the day room where all like the lunch tables and stuff are. And they're all hooting and hollering, and like some guys are like, let me at him, like get him out of here, and so I'm like, and I oversaw this and I didn't know what was going on, but while I was watching it, I'm like, I could, in my spirit, it was like, this is an injustice. I mean, I'm watching someone get bullied horrifically out of nowhere, like just boom, the guy was a really quiet guy. He was in there for, the first couple weeks I was in there. And all of a sudden I look over and like, there's this crew of guys just over him. It was cruelty, to say the least. I mean, I can't really describe it all and put it into words, but I'm like, it wasn't right. And here I am in jail. Normally somebody that would step into something like that, but now I'm in a different world. So I'm just sitting here observing. You don't interact the same way when you're behind bars as you do on the outside, because you're going to end up getting something you don't want. Your rights are different. Your consequences are different. It's a different world. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so, that was just one thing I witnessed. And that's one of, 2 or 3 of those very similar incidences that I witnessed. I mean, there's so many things in there. The reason I'm pointing this out is I'm talking about psychological game, mind games of being in here, the things you got to observe, the injustices that are happening to people. And then you have the injustices from the deputies on inmates where they're treating people like rats for no reason, just to maintain a psychological dominant morale, or however you want to word it, randomly picking out guys and making a show of them in sick and sadistic ways, to dragging everybody out, stripping everybody down, and searching everybody at random because they just want to prevent drug overdoses, because stuff gets smuggled in. People are overdosing and dying regularly. My bunkmate overdosed and died after I was in for a couple weeks. I'm like, where does this stuff come in? I guess that's not my life. So it took me a little bit. I'm kind of an idiot, when it comes to the street smarts thing. It's been 20 years since I've, ran around like that. But, it finally dawned on me, they're shoving it up certain crevices and they just don't get searched that deep when they're initially booked in. I mean, how else do you get a sack of dope in with you? I mean, you can swallow it, crap it out, and go fishing. I don't know, or just tuck it up there and hope they don't check. Because the thing is, nobody's afraid of getting high in there, because you can get high and you can't get charged with anything. You can't have added days onto your sentence or your stay. But if they find it on you, you're screwed. I mean, you got felonies. If it's pills, you get a felony for every pill. You get, if it's a certain number of pills, you get a, even bigger felony for potentially trafficking. I don't, but not to get too far off track, my bunkmate died, went blue, heartbeat was gone. Watched him sit there, working on him, bring him back, Narcan him, hit him with the shock, worked on him for 5-10 minutes and then got him out of there. I mean, watch the dude die right there, laying on the concrete. You know, I didn't know it was my bunkmate until after they started pulling him out of the dorm because I couldn't see his face. I just saw feet because there were so many guys around him. You know, I didn't know who it was, but I'm like, that was a shock when I found out it was my bunkmate. But I mean, there's just so many shocking things. So back to my hearing loss. You understand people can have hearing loss due to mental trauma. You know, like there's people that have nervous breakdowns just due to having a difficult life or being a victim of long-term, you know, abuse or something like, you know what I mean? Psychological, physical abuse. And I'm thinking like what I had to witness every day was so far from my normal and so outside of my moral reality. I don't know how if I'm doing any justice explaining any of this. That I'm like, in most of my time, I'm just trying to stay to myself and just pray, read the Bible, keep to myself. And there's you know, other guys that are kind of do a similar thing, but I don't need to, you know, most of the guys in there acting like it's just another day. They're out walking around. There's machoism, working out, you know. Then you got all the different characters. Maybe one of the episodes I'll talk about, you know, like you got this guy he's got to be the alpha. Then you got these guys, you know, like your cliche prison characters. You know what I mean? Well, getting off track, so I'm gonna circle back here and go into where my mind was at for the first 3-4 days. When I got brought down there, I was told I could get out that night for a price, and then it just ended up getting too late in the night. My people on the outside couldn't do it. Obviously, the court was closed, but you could walk into the jail at 24/7 and bond somebody out. But it just didn't work out that night. So I went to court in the morning for first appearance. They released me on my own reconnaissance or whatever, and I didn't even have to pay bail. But when they release you, you go back to the dorm and wait for the paperwork to be finalized in the computer system. Well, court was at 9 a.m. and the hours went by, and 5 p.m. came along, and I'm still in there wondering what on earth is going on. So I'm hitting the bell like, hey, what's going on? You know, like, can you give me an update? You know, and they don't want to talk to you. They're not there to help you. They're there to watch you freaking sit and rot. You know, they're like, nope, I didn't get anything. You're still an inmate. Don't hit the button again. If we hear something, you'll know about it. You know, that kind of thing. And then finally, like 5 something o'clock in the afternoon came, and a couple of the guards came in. I think it was around dinner time. I'm like, hey, any word on my situation yet? And most of the guards really don't know what's going on with guys, but since I was bugging them, these guys, they knew. They're like, yeah, you got a hold in another county. I'm like, what? What does that even mean? So I guess what was going on in my investigation is there's just they're tracking down other customers of mine that were just innocently on my schedule and treating them like victims, and just due to the fact that they're on my schedule, now they're a victim, not a customer. Because I'm in here because I'm being portrayed as a con man. You know, kind of get where I'm going with this. So now I got to hold another county. And then because there was pending charges, I have the bond that I bonded out 3 weeks prior with was revoked or surrendered or whatever. So now I'm being held on 3 different cases. and then reality set in heavy 24 hours into being booked in. I was under complete surety that I was getting out that day. I thought I was getting out the night I got arrested, but then it was like, oh crap, it's too late. No, my wife's not going to drive down here and leave the kids at home in the middle of the night and try to, she's like, it just didn't make, I don't know why this stopped or this fell here, but, by the way, if the way I'm going about doing all the talking, if I'm not too mentally with it for you to stick with it, let me know, drop a comment, and I'll do what I can to be a little bit more prepared. But at the end of the day, like, I'm still reeling, if you can't tell. It's been 48 hours since I got released. It's Sunday night. I got released Friday night. It's been 48, 49, 50 hours since I walked out those doors after 50 days. It's been 50 hours since I've been released after 50 full 24-hour days. So I'm still jet lagged, for lack of a better comparison. I didn't sleep. I slept last night, but the night before, I think I mentioned in my other video, I didn't sleep at all. I was up for over 48 hours straight. And so anyway, here we are after midnight. And I have, I'm going to be getting up early in the morning tomorrow too. But anyway, so my first 3-4 days in here, the roller coaster was so indescribable. My life and my reality, everything was being warped, and because I didn't know fully still yet why I was in there. I was partially aware of one of the charges. No, the investigator didn't explain to me the details. He just mentioned a name, and I recognized the name as one of my customers. So I kind of figured, okay, putting 2 and 2 together here, she must be upset. I didn't hear that part, but I think maybe she knew that if she were to go to civil court, she would have lost, because we have a contract. The contract says if you want to cancel, you're not going to get a full refund because you have custom non-refundable materials. So she went to, anyway, I'm trying to figure, I'm thinking in my head, like when you have no contact with the outside world, you're just trying to, your mind is going 1,000 miles an hour, and you're trying to fill in the gaps, and it's all an illusion. There's no reality to it, but you have nothing else to do. And and I'm sitting there thinking, I should have been out last night. I got released today, but I didn't get released. And then I found out I'm stuck here with no bond, no bail. No bond. So even if someone had $1 billion, they couldn't show up and bond me out. There was no bond because there's pending charges. Once the charges are filed, then you go to a court appearance, and they either give you a bond or tell you you don't have a bond. So until you have that experience, there's no bond. There's no getting out. You're stuck. And you're not even 100% sure when the next court date is going to be. Usually it's first appearance is the next weekday. Sometimes it's a few days out, but if it's obviously a Friday or whatever, you're gonna wait until Monday. But so I'm sitting there thinking, I know what I was ripped away from. I knew where my family was at, the situation we were in. I was preparing to get my kids to bed. I was gonna help my oldest write a paper that was due the next day. Ironically, or funny enough, the paper subject was, or the theme, or whatever you want to call it, was what's the difference between Christianity and religion? Yeah, they go to a Christian school. And that was the theme of the paper. And it was due the next day, and he was behind on everything, and he hadn't even started it. And I'm like, bruh, I'll help you out. This is up my alley. Like I can throw 100 websites together in like that without even accessing anything, because get me on a computer, we'll get you a paper together right away. I mean, he's in 7th grade, so it doesn't take much. I mean, we'll have everything, the body, the intro, the body, conclusion, whatever's necessary. I didn't even get a chance to look at like how they wanted it put together or how detailed they wanted it. We'd have a bibliography, we'd have everything. Everything would have been great, and I promised them. And I'm always one that I don't promise. I don't make promises. I've always been like that. I don't make promises to my kids. Like a lot of dads, oh, I promise I'll be there. Or I promise we'll get that taken care of, or whatever. I don't make promises. I let my yes be yes and my no be no, because I know promises are meant to be broken. They're never intentionally usually broken, but I'm not going to be that guy. Anyway, I assured him we're going to get that paper done. And he was like really trying to get that paper done, because he's really focused on getting this grade up in this one class. And here I go and get arrested. Police show up at my door at 8:00 at night as I'm getting ready to go in the house. And now I'm just gone. The family, I mean, the emotions and everything of everybody in the house. I'm sure everybody went through something, the wonder, the shock, the confusion, because none of this was expected. I didn't expect this. And then me being inside there, thinking I'm going to be out, in a couple hours, to thinking, okay, I'll be out tomorrow. This is hell. I can put up with hell for a day. And then literally being released in the morning, sitting in front of the judge saying, I'm going to let you out. Here's the paperwork you got to fill out. You got 10 days to get it in here. Otherwise, we're going to go out and get you again. We're going to put another warrant, issue another warrant. I'm like, not a problem. I'll have these paperwork. I'll have it all filled out. But, next day, there's nothing to it. I didn't even realize that I needed to do that. I missed something somewhere, or I wasn't properly served. It was due to a judgment. Like I said, business failed. So I had a couple people sue me for their money because I took too long to get it back to them. I don't care sharing information. I'm being transparent. This wasn't nothing I wanted to experience, but being self-employed, you win some, you lose some. Business was on its way out. Anyway, that was what this was for. There was a judgment, and I didn't ever receive. I received the final judgment paperwork, but that was it. Well, apparently, the judge said there was some documents that I should have filled out, fact information forms with my financial stuff, and turn it into the court system within a certain amount of time. None of that was in there, or if it was, I didn't see it. And I don't know how I would have missed that if it was all in there. But either way, regardless of whose fault it was, whether I actually missed something, whatever, that was the situation. And she was going to let me out, give me 10 business days to take care of it. But so then, like I said, my mental state was I'm getting released. So I was just waiting to, go home. I was waiting to get out. I gave away my 2 free phone calls. You get a piece of paper when you go in there with a PIN number on it. They say, here's your PIN number. You need that if you're going to call out at all. But the first 2 phone calls you have are free. The rest are going to be collect, regardless of whether you're using free phone calls or you're calling collect or whatever. The only way to get out is you got this 12-digit number you got to dial first. You don't have that, you're not making phone calls. It's a personal code that you need to dial before you dial any other number. And then that's the way you get out. Instead of dialing 1 to get out, you dial your personal code, whatever. I gave that away to somebody else who used up his 2 free calls. He was trying to work out something with somebody on the outside, and you can blow through 2 calls real quick. And if you don't get what you need to get done in 2 calls, and then you don't have anybody that wants to take collect call, kind of SOL. So we're going to wrap it up here. And by that, I mean this 10-minute drawdown to the video. The mental shock of the back and forth of, getting booked in at 8 o'clock, being stuck in a booking till 2 a.m., having gone from, I'm getting out tonight, I can pay the money, it's not that much. Well, I mean, it depends on who you are. But I had it barely. It just needed to be brought down to the courthouse. And it was not, that money was allocated for something else very important. It wasn't an easy decision, but what else am I going to do? Sit here? I didn't know I was going to have the opportunity to get out without paying it. I didn't know anything. Like, I just learned of this, and they didn't share any details. They showed up to my house saying I'm wanted for child support or arrears or something. And anyway, I disclosed that in the last video, or I described that in the first video, so I'm not going to get into that now. But so I waited overnight. I went from thinking I'm going to get out to knowing I'm going to wait overnight to being released at court in the morning, released verbally, like, hey, I'm letting you out, to and waiting from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., wondering why I'm not being let out. And every time I go hit the button, once every hour or so, they still don't have my paperwork. And most guys in there are like, yeah, don't worry about it. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. Sometimes it takes 6 hours. There's guys that, they get released and they don't even get out till the next morning because there's so much going on that they can't process everybody. There's just so much going on. So I'm like, all right, no big deal. But then when they came in around 5 o'clock and told me that I was being held and I didn't have a bond, I didn't find all that out at once. It came like a drip. They said that I have a hold, and I didn't even know really what that meant. I'm like, what do you mean I have a hold? They're like, well, you have a warrant in another county. I'm like, so they're being held. So even if I got out, they're going to hold me until the other county picks me up. So now here I'm thinking this other county is going to come ship me to their county. I'm like, okay. So then I started thinking, like, I got to figure out how to make a phone call, because I gave up my PIN number to another guy and he left. So that's gone. And then I asked him, I'm like, hey, I never got a PIN number when I came in. They're like, everybody's got a PIN number. What are you talking about? I'm like, I don't have one. Lied to him because I didn't have one, but I'm not going to tell them I gave it away, because then they tell you, good job, deal with it. I wasn't going to chance that. So they gave me a new PIN number, and I went and made a phone call, and my wife, I think, was the first person I called, and she called my bondsman, and she said that he said, due to the fact that there's pending charges, he pulled the bond. He didn't know that there was going to be more charges. I'm like, I didn't know there was going to be more charges. I didn't even know there was going to be charges to begin with. I didn't even know what's going on. Well, now he thinks I'm, legitimately this con artist, because now there's charges stacking up, like piling up slowly. So he pulled the bond. I basically had to surrender the money that was used to bond me out initially. Now I'm being held. Another county wants me, and I find out I'm going to be stuck for who knows how long. I've never been through this before. So then the weekend, a whole weekend, I'm sitting in there. My family has to do life Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, that wasn't Easter weekend. This is a few weeks later. Without me, unexpectedly, as if I died. I like basically no call, no show. Like I've evaporated from their life. And then Monday morning, I normally bring the kids to school. My wife has her daily rituals. Well, her life changed in an instant with what she had to do. Now she had to take on the whole day with the kids, dropping them off, picking them up. She's still got her stuff that she's got to do. I'm not there to go back to work. Money's tight. I mean, it's virtually gone, and there's nothing coming in unless I'm there. It's getting close to the end of the month, or real close to the end of the month. It was the 25th, then the 26th, and then over the weekend, Monday was like the 28th, I think, or close enough. But Thursday was the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. So Monday was 29th. I mean, like the first of the month is rolling around, which means a lot of bills are going to pop up due, and the money's not there. I was prepared to get it if I was out on the outside. I had work lined up, but I got to work to get it. Anyway, so I'm sitting here thinking, like, my life is literally crumbling before my eyes. My family is sitting out there probably scared, terrified, confused, afraid of now, homelessness, vehicles being repoed, lights being shut off, no food on the table. My wife doesn't work. She's a student currently. So, I mean, just imagine I'm the provider. I'm already stressed out enough in my day-to-day, being as tight on finances as we are, knowing I got to feed the family, keep the lights on, keep the bills paid, and I'm barely doing that. But now I'm in here, so I'm literally incapable of doing that. I can't provide or protect, and they're out there. I don't even know what they're doing. I couldn't hardly get a hold of my wife. Her phone does not collect calls, her cell phone. So, yeah, I couldn't even talk to her except for that first time it went through. After that, it never went through again. And I didn't know that. So here I'm thinking she's rejecting my calls. Imagine where that put me. I thought she was rejecting my calls and just got pissed off at me that I abandoned her. Because in so many ways, she kind of described my having left as my, like you should have saw this coming. You abandoned your family. You failed us, as opposed to, I don't know. We're not going to get too personal, but now you have a taste of where we're at and why things are why things are transpiring the way they are. It's too late. If I'm saying words wrong, man. It's coffee. Why am I drinking coffee at 1 a.m.? Well, I'm going to fall asleep regardless. But anyway, so that's my weekend. That's where my head, just take a minute and think where my head must have been at come Monday morning, having sat in there with no contact with the outside world all weekend. I hadn't contacted anybody else. I didn't have anybody else's phone number. I don't memorize phone numbers. I have my wife's number memorized. I remembered my dad's phone number because he's had the same number for 30 years. But I didn't call him. He lives out of state. And I'm just like, I don't want to bother him or really admit my situation. So I'm sitting in there. I had a buddy's phone number because when they booked me in, I took down one phone number, and it was a buddy of mine who I knew had limited resources. So from a resource standpoint, he wasn't going to be able to do anything for me, but he might have been able to run around and help me out. And it turned out this guy did a bunch, big help for my wife for the first, few days and week that I was in there, just went above and beyond helping her out. But, did a bunch of running around, sold some tools or something like try to round up some money. And then, he's got a family. His relationship with his wife was kind of iffy too at the time. And he's got to focus on himself a lot, so it's like he really gave a lot to help us out during that time. I'm like, a lot going on, this week. Just to put yourself in my shoes, kind of you know, where my head must have been at and where my wife's head must have been at, and my kids, me not knowing that she's actually unable to answer the phone. Like it just would not allow her to answer the phone. I learned that later. I'll get into more of that in the next video. I'll go more into detail, but I'm going to stop this one here. It's been an hour. I told you I'm going to keep them to an hour. So if I don't get another one up immediately following this one, check it out tomorrow, because I'll have one up tomorrow. But yeah, drop a comment, let me know what you think about where I'm at with this. What I wanted to talk about is what, I guess part 3, it'll work out good because it's like I'm due for a transition in the conversation. So yeah, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification button. Hey, I got your comment, that you have the bell on. Awesome. So you actually see when I post a video. I'm not a very regimented guy, or at least I haven't been. So when these videos come, they come when they come. I'm trying to do one every day, but as far as when they come, when they pop up, have the bell on so you know. But yeah, drop a comment. Let me know what you think so far. The conversation. I'll see you in the next one. Taste and see that the Lord is good. There's some good stuff coming. Peace.